Well, hello.
Hello. It's so good to see you.
Great to see you as well. And you look dry.
So far, so good. The sun is shining and the days are getting longer in the internet, which is always, it's always great when the arc of the rhythm of the world on the internet is amazing.
Oh my God.
Or
Well,
maybe in
we
reality
are
too, but
we're definitely embracing the warmth outside. Uh, so
there you have it,
that's a
as
positive.
well as the
That's a
warmth
positive.
on the inside.
Speaking of the inside, I can hear it echoing from the halls of Tuckahoe High School. Yo Munir. Yo Munir.
Creativity. The happiest guys on the internet.
What's going on, brother? Yo Munir.
Yo, Rob. How you doing? I would like to introduce and bring you into our world, Yo Munir, a show about creativity. I am Munir Haddad, co-founder and CEO of Kiosk, an advertising agency, award-winning advertising agency, and I'm a firm believer in stakeholder capitalism. How about you, Rob?
Yeah, I'm Rob Haddad, a former producer and director who spent his career in sports, media, and technology. And on today's show, we'll talk about connections, both personal and creative. You're going to read me something from legendary producer Brian Eno, and
Yes,
we'll
sir.
close. Yeah, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And we'll close with what we learned last week in Miami. But first, let's talk about what we did this week.
That sounds fantastic. Rob, I found a great uh, echo from what we did last week and even the week before. And it resonated in my work this week. And that's always amazing when you can take learnings or events or creative um, opportunities or connections and bring them together in your day-to-day work. I spent a lot of time at the kiosk agency doing the things that I do at the kiosk agency. We brought in new clients, we built new
Hey,
work, we launched things, and it was kind of a culmination. One of my colleagues referred to it as 0 to 1. And there was this for fomenting of a lot of energy, and then there was maybe even some nervousness about, well, is it all going to coalesce and come together into a thing? Is it not? And are we going to have a problem? then and then we had this amazing coalescing of lots of activities into the thing that we were supposed to bring into this world, um, along with a lot of other things that still need to happen. But it was very much like our conversations last week with students in Miami, with Ket at the Museum of Graffiti, and with Erica about conversations that occur or groups of people that get together and how that then turns into a thing or could turn into a thing. How about you, Rob?
wow, it almost sounds like you're describing the slow hunch.
Way to bring that in early. Yes, Stephen Johnson, who wrote and writes a lot about group creativity. He's got a great TED talk. He wrote the book Where Good Ideas Come From, and he talks about the idea of the slow hunch, which is our culture celebrates the aha moment and the eureka and the I just had this idea and it's brilliant. And he argues that these things come from coffee houses in Europe. He's like, the Enlightenment happened in coffee houses. And his argument for that is that in 1650, which is when the first coffee house in England opened,
No, is that right?
yes, because what used to happen is you would have a little beer for breakfast. You would then go and have lunch and have a little wine. At night, you'd have some gin. And then after, you'd have a little bit of wine and beer. So you were drunk the whole day. And then in 1650, because by the way, the water sucked. So like
Oh,
alcohol
good
was
point.
safer.
A
So
lot of anxiety, though, I presume.
they would go into the coffee houses, and all of a sudden you're moving from a drug that suppresses you and
Downer.
depresses you to a stimulant. And so you're sitting together in these spaces with lots of people from all sorts of walks of life, and he calls it a liquid network, and
Shit.
posits that that's where brilliant ideas come from. That's where the aha moment comes from. It actually comes from lots of little people in a network grasping and sharing, and then suddenly it coalesces, like we were just talking about.
Oof. Well, I do on occasion go to the Breakfast Club in Maplewood, New Jersey, and the Breakfast Club is a maybe even a global connection of coffee across the world, where like-minded, or maybe not even like-minded, but where individuals go to network. And we have one here in New Jersey, and I attend. Shout out to the Breakfast Club and the folks who make that happen. I did not do that this week, although I wish I had. I miss. I've, I've I've been attending less recently. Hopefully, it picks up again soon, um, because I've been shoveling, Munir. I've been shoveling. I've been shoveling all winter, and that continued this past week with the blizzard of 2026. It's not all melted, but we have thankfully had some warmth that has melted most of it. And unlike the last few storms where it was like 0 degrees and wasn't going anywhere, we have been gifted warmth from Mother Nature. Thank you for that. But I did travel the first 3 weeks of this month, which is unusual for me.
I got to
And
enjoy
this
one of
week,
those.
you did. That was wonderful. But this week was really like level setting, back at the shop, as it were.
Yeah.
So between shoveling and level setting at the shop, it was a busy week. But something I did do this weekend was have dinner with some friends from Eastchester, New York,
The old
which is where we
neighborhood.
grew up.
Indeed.
And that was invigorating. That was wonderful. That was one. And we had
Fabulous.
multiple generations at the dinner table.
Oh, say more.
Oh, well, I'm happy to. So it was a group of friends. Some of them you know, some of them you even worked with at Lake Isle Country Club,
Oh
which is
yeah.
since
Town Park.
been renamed Town Park due to misappropriation of some funds, but that's okay. We weren't involved in that.
We were too
We
young to know.
benefited from the employment, benefited from the
That's it.
employment, and it was a source of connection for people in the community. Think about the friendships and the relationships that were cultivated, nurtured, and built from having a summer job.
Yeah.
And when we talk about the kids and
Yeah.
what advice we give, the first thing I say to college students and high school students is get a job in your town.
Yeah. Yeah.
Think local first. Think
Yeah.
local because it's a great opportunity to build skills
Right.
and make money
Right.
and meet people.
And historically, it's easier to get a job when you already have a job.
buddy, let me tell you, it's also historically, without data to support it, this is vibes, it's also easier to get a job locally.
Right.
If
You're
you
right.
if I was looking for a new job this very second, and now never mind salary, but if the sole
Yeah.
objective was what's the fastest way to get a job, it would
Yeah.
not be through LinkedIn.
Right. Right.
So that was the advice that I gave to my own kids,
Okay.
and it worked.
Yeah.
It worked.
Yep.
But we were reminiscing about the tremendous experience it was working at Lake Isle together. Now, for some of us, we also participated in Eastchester Summer Theater, which is something I don't think you did.
I did not do that. I did drama club, but not Eastchester Summer Theater.
Sure, but Bunny and Sue Rappaport, God bless
Okay.
them, they were the leaders of our summer theater.
Okay.
It was a tremendous collection of local talent,
Mhm.
Bronxville, Tuckahoe, Eastchester, at
Oh wow.
least,
Yeah.
maybe some Scarsdale, but for sure Bronxville, Tuckahoe, and Eastchester. And you got to meet kids at the other schools
Right.
who also shared the enthusiasm for performance,
Talk about community. Collection of
for
ideas.
community. And I realized as I was thinking about today's episode, this was foundational to my creative experience.
Right.
Because at my high school, I participated in drama club.
Right.
I had a few of the leads my junior and senior year. I loved performing, but it got me outside of that community where there were also other people auditioning for the same roles. And there was now competition too.
Yes.
So there was a layer of, oh, what does it take to be good?
Right.
That was added into the thing that I thought initially was just for fun. And for sure, this was for fun. But in the back of your mind, there's a little bit of competition involved in who's going to get what role.
Yeah. Well, you talk about
So
things that amplify and bring people up and cause us to be better is that there can be competition in a positive way. We spoke about that last week. The capacity to improve each other by wanting to be better has a natural advancing effect, and that community of people creating and bringing new ideas has we've seen that amongst collectives throughout history.
it made me think about the opportunity for people to participate. Sunny and Bunny and Sue essentially were giving us permission to perform. It wasn't just
Right.
an opportunity to perform, right? Which is
Yes.
different.
Right.
It was this encouragement to perform,
Yes.
which gave you space and permission to perform, which is more inclusive. And it really brought a lot of people out to participate because they felt involved.
Yeah. And they had that community of other creative people around them. I would like to read you something based
Thank you.
on your experience, and I think it's going to tie in. So this is from Brian Eno, a famous producer. He had his own bands and then was famous for producing other bands. And he was speaking at a festival in Sydney, Australia, and he says, like all art students, I was encouraged to believe that there were a few great figures like Picasso and Kandinsky, Rembrandt and Giotto, and so on, who sort of appeared out of nowhere and produced artistic revolution as I looked at art more and more, I discovered that that wasn't really a true picture. What really happened was that there were sometimes very fertile scenes involving lots and lots of people, some of them artists, some of them collectors, some of them curators, thinkers, theorists, people who were fashionable and knew what the hip things were. All sorts of people who created a kind of ecology of talent. And out of that ecology arose some wonderful work. So I came up with this word, Scenius, the intelligence of a whole operation or group of people. I think that's a more useful way to think about culture. Let's forget about the idea of genius for a little while. Let's think about the whole ecology of ideas that give rise to good new thoughts and good new work.
I have to admit, the first thing I think about, and maybe it's because it's Brian Eno and he's a musician, but the book Our Band Could Be Your Life focuses on the 80s punk rock scene, and you see the pockets of creativity. When you think about Seattle and the grunge movement, people are like, what was going on in Seattle at that
Hey,
time? Well, there were places to perform and there were bands who were performing and there was a little bit of healthy competition. And so suddenly it happens in sports too. In baseball, we would
yeah,
talk about hotbeds of talent.
right.
And it's such a great quote. And of course, historically we can talk about art movements and writers in New York City and the Village and so on and so forth.
Yeah,
Because having that space to be in community and to connect with others will breed creativity.
agreed. 1000%.
Great, great, great thought to share from Brian Eno. Thank you.
Thank you.
I, yeah, I guess. How did you find it?
So I would say that the process of us having conversations about what we would talk about was almost like this collaboration that I was feeling. I was feeling like I had threads and kernels of ideas for us to talk about, and you were sharing some threads and kernels of ideas with me. And alone, I might have been able to come up with it, but it didn't coalesce until I had the opportunity to share with you. And I won't lie, I also used my new friend Claude to discuss some ideas that I had about other writers that I knew about. And then it suggested some things that I should think about. And that got me to realize, along with conversations with you afterwards, um, it clarified this area of fertile ground. And we were inspired by the idea of collaborative by being in a fertile location of ideas and interests last week when we were at the University of Miami, located with 55 sparky young people who were sharing ideas and creating things. And one of them shared a movie that he had been encouraged to make. Again, we should shout out to Ben King, the organizer. So, and he has a movie, short, I mean, but really well done.
13 minutes. That's a
Yeah, legit. And it's good. Like, well written, well shot, well
yeah.
acted, like,
I was honestly stunned.
yeah, yeah. Um, and the capacity, but that happens because of the creative environment and the people. Because he had an idea, but he was encouraged to create by other people in his group of friends, he told us. And then they assisted in making it come to fruition. And the other thing that was highly relevant about this Scenius, or this idea of collaborative genius, was our trip to go see Ket at the Museum of Graffiti. And when you think about graffiti as an art form, or an expression of culture, it emerged out of, it's been, people have been writing on walls since, the Egyptians, but this idea of like graffiti emerged in New York in the 70s, late 60s, 70s, and really coalesced with these groups of people, mostly young kids. Kent was explaining they were kids who were avoiding gangs, but writing together. And then you just talked about like upping the game. So like one kid writes something that's a little bit fancier. And so then what do I want to do as a kid in the group? Well, I want to try to up my game to write fancier too. And all of a sudden we have an art form.
So I was so excited because to me, we were going to talk a lot about this with next week's guest, Keith Overton, at least in
Yes.
my mind. And I've always been fascinated by the hip hop scene in Westchester. So
Yes.
from Yonkers, Mount Vernon, and New Rochelle, just north of the
Yes.
Bronx. Those are the first three towns just north of the Bronx. And out of that area was produced Mary J. Blige, was Pete Rock and CL Smooth, was Al B. Shore, was Heavy D and the Boys, was Brand Nubian. And the energy that we got to, by proxy, participate in, you felt a connection to it. 914. You'll see me put hashtag 914. Shout out to Randy Alexander. There's just people in our lives that we have connections with, even if it's been a long time since we've spoken to them. And what I love about what Yo Munir has done, it has introduced me to new people. It has allowed me to continue to talk about their impact on my life just through their participation in our show, like Kevin Frank and Alan Cat and Heidi and Ken, and we still bring them up in conversation, like Ben King, because we're all connected. And I love that. I love that this show celebrates creativity and connection.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And we will talk about it next week with Keith Overton. And I do think that, the capacity to have, you've talked about culture and pockets of individuals and these areas, it occurs. And it occurs because of a willingness and an invitation and an opportunity, and people just having to like, finding space, the Wynwood neighborhood that Kep was talking about, because it had been, and this starts to become problematic over time, but it had been an area that was accessible to people that were artists, because artists don't always make a lot of money. So it was affordable. Like they could live there and they could do things on the walls in the environment, because there were lots of walls, because it used to be a warehouse area. And then what happens to those areas when they get really popular? And the arc, and why are they popular? They're popular because of the artists, and then you make it unaffordable for the artists. So what happens next? That's a whole societal discussion for later. But one of the other things that came out of our collective, and came out of the experience of community, was we invited the people um, in our session to get in touch with us. And a few of them did. A few of them took the opportunity. We gave everybody the same opportunity, but it's always interesting to see what the if you want to go to marketing and advertising, the take rate. So everybody had the same CTA, and everybody had the same QR code, but only a few raised their hands and said, "Yes, please, would you be willing to talk to me about my career path in a more like one-on-one?" And we told them, "Yeah, we'll help you." And a few said, okay, please help me. I would like to talk to you more. And it might just be that we are giving them their own permission to pursue their own dreams, which sometimes is all it takes. It's like,
Yeah.
I just needed somebody to tell me it would be okay, or I want to tell you. I've had those conversations where I've had a 15-minute conversation with somebody. They send me an email, a week later, maybe even 6 months later. Sometimes it takes a while, the slow hunch. But I found the gig, I found the job, I found the thing, and oftentimes as well, our conversations with these prospects isn't I'm just going to give you the thing. It's I'm going to teach you how to fish, like you just said. Get the job locally, and then do the next thing.
So I one of the students who reached out to me asked me, is there anybody in your network who can help me with X?
Right.
And I said, well, I need you to provide me with companies that you're interested in. And then I want you to look at the people who work there and if I'm connected to any of them, and come to me with some ideas as well, so that I have direction
Yeah.
to help
Don't give me
you.
work. Right. Of
That's right. That's right. That's right. I did in exchange as a teaser say you should reach out to this person
course.
who had raised their hand to participate. Shout out to Maplewood, by the way. It's somebody from the Maplewood Breakfast.
Nice.
And so we'll see how this conversation transpires.
Yeah. So, much like you, one of the individuals reached out about a specific opportunity that I actually, at my agency, have, people with expertise. I didn't have an opening, but I'm perfectly willing to introduce them for informational interview, which can always also lead to job when the job opening comes up because somebody goes, "Oh, I remember meeting with that person. They were great. I wish I had had an opening at the time, and now I do." And so the other side to don't send your resume into LinkedIn and hope that something happens, like you just said. You got to go create your opportunities, and that means that finding a job, if that's what you want, is work. That's a job. Like you got to go be active about that, and also creative about the ways that you go about finding the position.
I keep sharing my thoughts on how to get a job and treating job hunting like marketing campaigns.
You have to.
And you have to measure it too. And
Yes.
so as I explained to the kids, I gave them three buckets to look at. There's the I want to work for Disney bucket
Yeah.
and LinkedIn bucket,
Account-based
which
marketing.
is, yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
Then there's the middle one, which is I know somebody at this place that might be able to help me. And then
Yeah.
there's the local bucket.
Yeah.
There's a job that I can get that's hourly wage that I can afford to do
Right.
in my hometown. It's
Right.
accessible. I can walk there. I don't need a car. It'll
Yeah.
get me started.
Right.
So, and then measure yourself based on those. Your LinkedIn bucket
Yeah.
is probably going to be maybe at best 1 out of 10 conversion.
Yeah.
Maybe it's 1 out of 10 for interview, not even 1 out of 10 for
Right.
job. Maybe it's one in a
Right.
hundred for job
Yeah.
from a
Yeah.
conversion rate. The middle bucket will be much higher, and then the third bucket will be the
Yep.
highest.
Yep. Yeah. And much like you were talking about acting locally, if you're running a PR campaign for a new brand, oftentimes what you will do is you will submit to the local paper or the local website about the individuals doing something interesting in their community, or even they're doing something interesting on the national stage, but you're not going to get the press at the New York Times right off the bat. You get the press in the regional paper. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of times that you and I talk about Eastchester Summer Theater. We're in, like, what are they, the
The
Eastchester
Eastchester
Gazette or
Record,
Eastchester
Eastchester Record.
Record. Right, but
Yeah,
that's PR agencies, nationally known, well-known PR agencies will their strategy is always to start with the local press and then ladder you up, much like you were talking about. So first I get you in the local press. So first you get the local job. Then from there I ladder you up to the next level. And from there I ladder you up to the Disney or the bigger company that you want to work at, or the bigger production, or whatever it might be. Or in our case, if we continue the press metaphor, you get to the New York Times or on television, or whatever you want. You're on CNBC, you and I talking about Yo Munir.
Good Morning America, if that still exists by the time we have an audience suitable for that.
It's,
Uh, TikTok, TikTok.
hey man, can be
Speaking of
done.
TikTok
Hmm.
and audience building, no,
Yes.
I don't have that segue. I wish I did. I was going to take us to our mixtape.
Let's go to our mixtape.
I just saw what you put in, and one of those songs was on my mixtape for next week.
Well, I'm gonna jump you on that one, so you're gonna have to wait for next week. You can say it
So
again. It's not.
use. I'm going to keep it because you probably won't talk about it the same way I will. But go ahead.
All right, so I have 3 songs on my mixtape. First is "Work" by Gangstar. I talked a lot about working this week and how invigorating and awesome it was, and so that one stuck in my mind. "Harder Than You Think" by Public Enemy, which is I love that song. It's very animated, and it speaks to getting through stuff. And then "We Trying to Stay Alive" featuring John Forté, Wyclef Jean, and John Forté. Speaking about creativity in our neighborhood, I've spoken about the fact that we lost John recently from our community. And one of the individuals in a group of folks that I get together with on a regular basis has started this incredible painting and offered all of us in our group to at least put a piece of our brushstroke on the painting that he is going to give to John's family. And
Oh wow,
so those are my 3 songs.
wow, that's great. Well, certainly commendable. In fact, I was listening to that song last night and listened to it multiple times on repeat. Really, one of my favorite songs, especially when you're listening to it. Gangstar Work is iconic. Guru is from Boston, born in Roxbury, so shout out to New England. On my mixtape this week, a bit eclectic. Golden Smog, Radio King, very Wilco vibe. Jeff Tweedy is in that iteration of Golden Smog that produced Radio King. Smith Smith and Wesson, Bucktown, Wow. I would say also on par with Work. Very anthemic songs. And Johnny Gill, There You Go, from the Boomerang soundtrack. The greatest soundtrack ever produced. Thank you.
Thank you. I love it. I can't wait for next week when we see Keith Overton from
Tuckahoe, let's go. Love you, brother. Great to see
You
you.
Too. See ya.
Bye.